Alright guys, today I'm going to be installing a wood floor in this bedroom. As you can see, I already got the carpet up. We've already drywalled and painted the walls. We took all the strips off the walls and painted, make it look like a regular wall. I used to have strips on the walls. So now that we've got that done, this is the type of wood I'm going to be using. I was going to actually buy some plywood and have it and cut it into length, but I bought this at a local Habitat store, and I got a pretty good deal in it. But it looks like a real wood, but it's actually an expensive type of plywood. And it's got a pop-up veneer, and I've already installed this in the hallway and in my living room. And I'm just going to repeat the process in this room, and then the rest of the houses that are going to rest of the house we're going to remove the carpet and put this wood down. So basically what I've done, you can see right here, I've already done it in the hallway here. And I'm going to repeat the process here. Usually I would start in the middle of the room and kind of work my way to each side. So you would start here, about the middle of the room, and kind of work your way off the middle to make it look even on each side. But since I've already got the hallway done, let's just start from here, work my way over. And basically what I've done in the past, I went to the hallway and living room, is I just glued the bottom of the board, and then I would lay it down and I would just face nail it across, and I would do each end, stagger the pattern, and do every 16 inches. And then the type of glue I'm using, just stuff you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot, liquid nail, and just heavy duty construction adhesive. I had another type that I was using besides this, but I think this works a little better. And we've had the floor down for several months and not had any problems with it moving. And I just used a brad nail, I think like a 2 or 2.5 inch brad nail, and that's all it took. So without any further ado, let's get started. Alright, so here's how I'm attaching my boards to the floor, how I'm gluing them rather. So basically, I got an industrial size tube of glue. A little cold. Already come out. Switch hands. On a bead, kind of back and forth. Like that. And I've learned to kind of stay a little bit away from the edges. For my next part, I'll take just a scraper like a floor, like you'd put tile down with. Start at the end. Just kind of flatten the glue out all the way down. So I went over the edge there, but that's what I was trying to avoid doing. If I stay away from the edges, it just makes it a little bit easier. Get almost to the end, and then at the end down here, I'll work my way back. That way I don't have to go over the end and drop off the side. And then I'll fill in the places here, like the gaps. So here's the better look. I didn't get like all over the wood, but as long as you get enough just to cover it for the most part, just so it can create some suction to hold itself down. Then all I do, tight. You can see, I'll put a few on the end so I can get. And then I'll mark every 16 inches on the way down, and just face nail all the way down from there. Alright, something else I've picked up on doing the rest of the house is while doing it this way, I think it's a little bit faster to cut out 3 or 4 rows of board at one time. Go ahead and dry fit them in. Like I've got these 3 rows here. Those aren't nailed yet or glued. And then once you get them cut out, you kind of back these 2 rows up and do that row, and then work your way down. Then you can go back the next, you know, when you get to the next row, you know, you can go ahead and do 2 or 3 more rows, and then so on and so forth. And the reason I don't do the whole room at one time is because, yeah, it would be faster cutting, getting that whole step done at one time, but you'd have an abundance of boards that were piled up on one side of the room when you're moving them down, and then you would get confused, or potentially could get confused when you're trying to figure out what boards go where. There's probably a way, I mean, you could probably stack them up in a stack, and then just take off the top stack and just set them down, you know, like that. But I think it's just better to do it this way. It's a little less confusing. And you also notice keeping my pattern random, you know, where my gaps are. That way it'll add strength. And even this one's probably a little too close with just the way it worked out. And one easy way you can do that is the board you cut off here on this end, put a solid board back on this end, and then use the excess off of the last board on the opposite side of the room down here. I think I've done it, you know, right there. But that's an easy way to keep it random. So now we've got to a right here at the edge of a vent. The other parts of the house I just kind of pieced together right here around it and left some gaps here. But on this one, I'll try to make it tight to where it'll fit better. So the easiest way to do it is to put it up against the vent and just mark it here and here, and then measure your width here and just cut it across to that. Here it is after I marked it up. As you can see, I just went by the marks I put on the edge. I took a speed square, just marked it back, and I took my measurement off of the back side that I measured, and then marked a line straight across. And I'll be cutting this out with a jigsaw. Okay, I got it all cut out, and let's see how it fits. It fits pretty good. A little bit crooked, but it'll work. I really wanted to keep this piece right here to add to the strength when I put the vent cover back on, because I got the other ones I didn't. I might go back in and piece it. So keep that in mind when you're cutting around the vents. Try to get as close to the edge of this as you can whenever you trim around it. That way you can have some, gives it more strength so that your vent's not being, you know, barely sticking on the edge of the wood. They'll bend in if you, depending on what kind of vent coverage you have, but most of them will bend in because they're not made very well, honestly. So the trick to cutting this trim out, this is a pull saw. I got this off of Amazon. It's a Japanese pull saw. So like where American saws work is when you push, it cuts in a push motion. Pull saw cuts when you pull back on it. So it gives you a straighter, more accurate cut. So the best way to do this, you can put your board, whatever the width of flooring you're using. They make saws for this, but this I think is a better way. You can either just put it straight on the board and cut it like this. Which I think is probably the most accurate way to do it. Got some staples here too from the carpet. Some glue, but this will fit right under that. It's a pretty tight fit. And it's a straight cut, or you can mark around it, but I like just putting the board up there and cutting like that. I think it's a lot faster. Alright, so I finished cutting it out. Went ahead and did both sides of the door. As you can see, back up a little bit. As you can see, it fits under there really tightly. Looks good. So that's how you cut out trim to fit your floor. Alright, so I got my board cut length on this last run. A couple things going on. As I mentioned before, I got the cutout for the closet door and then the vent itself. So I'm going to start with the closet door. Basically, you want your cut on the board to be at least as wide as this wall, but you don't want it to be wider than the trim. So I'm going to start by marking the back side on each side. and then I'll just need to measure the distance from here to here after I got my board pushed all the way up, and that's how far this board needs to come over in order to fit into here. So I just basically need to take out an area this length by as wide as a wall is. So I'm going to do that now, and then after I get that done, I'm going to work on the vent. I'll just repeat the processes from earlier to do that. And here is the final result. It looks. You can't even see the cut under the trim here, and I got a little bit off here, but it'll work. As long as the vent sits over, it'll cover it up. You won't be able to see that at all, and it'll function properly. But it came out pretty good. I'm happy with it. I just want to show you another way you can do this around a door frame. This way you can, it's kind of like cheating a little bit. Basically, instead of like I did this one here, cutting around it, sliding the piece over, you could do the same thing on, could have done the same thing over here, but I would have had to get this board here set right and worry about the distance being right for this board, and it's just more that can go wrong. So I chose an easier route, just cutting my line here, making my floor break right here, and by doing so, I can just slide this board right under there. Fits right there. And then I need to tighten up, knock it, hit it a little bit and knock it a little bit tighter, but you can see it looks pretty good. It's a little bit easier doing that way. Just cut a notch out and just sliding the board in. And you could do this one this way too. I could have done that one that way. So that's just another option of a way you can do it. Okay, for those of you that have a wall like this that has any kind of other angle besides a 90 degree, here's a really easy trick to figure the angle of that wall if you don't have the means to do so. Keep your boards in line with the pattern you're using. Once you get to the point, just run your boards to here. Don't nail them down. Put another board on the wall like this. After you mark it, that's your angle, and then you can just copy that and use that as a guide for your next cuts. Alright, you can see how the corner came out actually pretty good, and it's almost exactly to that angle. It might be a little bit off here and there, but it really doesn't matter. You can have some gaps along the edge, because I'm going to be putting molding along the edge here, and it'll cover these little gaps up. Just keep into account. Just look at how wide the trim is, like as a reference, and make sure your gap is less than the width of that tread, or less than the width of the trim. Excuse me. It should look fine. All right, I'm to the funky corner now, where I've got to have a straight cut and angle cut. So I already know my angle here. I've already got boards cut to fit that angle. So I've got a board here, cut to the same angle. Just set it down beside it. So what this gives me here is I know my distance over to this. I got a reference of this board here. So we know this board is going to sit against this board. So what I'm going to do to figure out how far over, to cut the flat part so it'll slide up, is I'm basically just going to take a speed square, put it to the end of that corner, right there. Pen. And I'm just going to mark it. I don't know if I can get it marked. Mark it right there. So again, it gives me a reference. Sorry for the bad lighting. It gives me a reference to know where to cut the flat part off at. We'll get all the way at the end of it, and you know, I know you might not have this on your wall, but just in case you do, it's just a quick little tidbit on how to do it fast without having to spend a lot of time figuring out angles and stuff, because it can be a little complicated. So I'm gonna cut that off, and that should fit right in place. Alright, fit that in there. It's pretty doggone close. There's a little bit of a gap there, but it's a little bit bigger than what I've already got. And then the trim will cover that up. Just cut the angle out with the baseboard, and it shouldn't even be able to see that. And then I'll stand up. That's the whole angle of the wall. That should come out pretty good. Alright, here's an example of a crack, and it's basically just due from the boards. One end is a little bit different than the other ones. Whoever cut them, like I said, I got them from Habitat for Humanity. Somebody just donated them. I ended up buying them for $1 a board. It was cut off of pretty high dollar plywood, so I guess it's just scraps of what they were using, and it just kind of worked out for me. They're already cut. But anyway, the cracks are due to just some of the boards not being quite the same. You can kind of see right there, it's just a little bit off, so I've got some cracks in the floor. But the easiest way to fix them is take some sawdust that you had from cutting the boards. Just kind of fill the cracks in. You can swipe it away. When you get done, you sweep it up. But you can see the difference, but it almost makes it invisible. And you can even, if you had wider cracks, I guess you could put some floor glue on it, or you could put floor glue, I guess, with a crack this size too, and just kind of mix it together and put it in there. It's actually probably what you're supposed to do, but this is how I'm going to do it. I might go back with some glue and just kind of put on top of it and rub some more in there just so it'll stay. But just going to give you a little quick tip. Alright, I'm all done with the room. Here's an example of the baseboard I'll be using. I just kind of stuck it up there just to look at it. So I pretty much just followed a random pattern. You can kind of see all the way to the other wall on that last last board I had to rip to get it to fit. And the closet, you can see in here, I just used solid boards on each side. Kind of used some of the boards that didn't look as good. Comes out pretty good. Next I'll be putting fixing a couple of the cracks. I got a little trick to show you how to fix some of that. These boards weren't perfect, so I got some little small cracks like that in between some of the boards I need to fix. Then after I fix those little cracks, I'll be ready for the stain. Alright, getting ready to start staining the floors. This is a stain, not really stain, and actually kind of tans floor like that a little bit, but it's not really a stain. It's a polyurethane, so it's like a clear coat. I bought satin. I kind of wish I'd got the semi-gloss. I think the semi-gloss will look a little bit better. But I went ahead and got this again because I've done the rest of the house like this already. So it's got a little bit of a shine, but I think it would look better if I had more of a shine. I just found this product. It's supposed to dry fast enough to recoat in 4 hours. And I had another product that was a water base that would dry, I think, in a couple hours. But it seemed like this one, I just went with this one because the other one I had wasn't the water coat, so I didn't want to, if I overlapped it a little bit on the other polyurethane, I didn't want it to affect that. I didn't know if it would. So supposedly, if you put this on in 3 to 4 hours, you should be able to put another coat on. And up to 12 hours. If you wait more than 12 hours, you have to sand it. But the whole thing is you shouldn't have to sand it. If you do it between the 4 and 12 hour mark. So that's why I got this. It was a little more expensive, but it wasn't as expensive as the 2 hour stuff. Just want to show you what kind of stain pad I got. It's Minwax 10-inch floor stain. When I did the other hallway, or my living room and hallway, I think I screwed up and got the like a pad you would use on a deck to do deck stain. Just don't look as good. I think this will be a little more forgiving and look a lot better. But that's what it looks like. And fill pad. That's what it looks like. I think this will be a lot better though. I think it'll just give a better look. I got the lid off. Anytime you use polyurethane, you want to stir it. It's not like a paint can. You can pretty much just grab it and shake it really hard, and it'll kind of blend. But polyurethane, you want to stir it up really good to make sure that you have all the chemicals mixed together. If you don't, you'll end up with splotches. And I had a 1 gallon on my other parts of the floor. It didn't mix good, and you can tell in places where it's like a different consistency. And this kind, the stuff that's 4 hours, it's not as thick as the 6 hour stuff. So I think it's probably going a little bit easier than the other stuff. But you can see the that's kind of gunked up right there. You want to mix all that stuff in with the top part. So you can see I'm kind of pulling against the backwards. It's probably not a correct technique, but I like doing that just because I think it gives me more control. And if you push, it seems like it'll build up at the end of your push. And whenever you pull it towards you, I feel like you can kind of fade out and leave it like a smoother stroke. But you can see how it's looking pretty good. You see the difference from the board that's not been done over here to the board that's been done. And you always want to go with your grain as well. So even if you have some little marks or a little bit off, it'll be with the grain, so it looks more natural. Just looks better. Alright, I got the final coat on. Just gotta let it dry. The only downside to this type of polyurethane is it has to have 3 coats. But I will say that it uses a lot less for the first coat, and that's usually what takes up the most. They probably use half the what a normal gallon would take up, and then after the first coat, it doesn't really absorb as much, so you use a lot less. So I would say I'm probably going to use less than a gallon for this room, to this whole room. The only thing I have left to do now is put the baseboard down, and I'll probably make a separate video for doing that, because I have other parts of the house I'm going to do as well. But I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below if you have any questions. I probably didn't do it like most people would do it, but I did it on a budget. And all in all, for this floor, I probably have maybe $200 for this whole room, if that, plus my time. And then having the strips taken off and the drywall, I paid I think $200 for that. So probably another gallon or 2 of paint for this room if you count the primer. So I'm probably all in all, probably cost me $500 or $600 to take the strips off of this room, primer the walls, paint the trim. For the flooring material, and then polyurethane. Now I don't count like the tools, but I use simple tools. The only thing I used in this room just to see if I could do it was a circular saw, and then just a brad nailer, and then a pull bar or a pry bar, just to kind of force some of the boards and straighten them out as I put them down. But my goal was to see was to add as much value, you know, to the house. You know, this room is just an example, without spending a whole lot of money. You know, and this isn't you know, it's worth more than laminate to put this floor down. It's just like putting hardwood down. Might not be worth quite as much as hardwood, but you can sand and do things to this wood, and it'll look a lot better when it's done. It gives it a higher class look than if you just put laminate down. And once I get the baseboard down, it'll you know, it'll look a lot better. So spending $500, so probably if I had to pay somebody to put this floor down here, it probably would have cost, you know, $1,000 for this room, not counting the material. And painting, you know, plus the drywall, that probably cost another $1,000. So I probably added, you know, at least a couple $1,000 in value for this room, I would say, if I had to pay somebody to do all of it myself. But hope you guys like watching the video. Just leave some comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm working on getting some better equipment to, you know, make better videos, and I'm gonna try to start making more videos soon.